All right, this is Pasco Municipal Court. I do have in the courtroom Mr. Bell, Mr. Kano appearing personally, and I have an individual on a telephone with a number 528-2631. You need to unmute yourself, please, and identify yourself.
Yes, I'm Scott Gordon.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Kano, for the record, Mr. Gordon is appearing remotely. What are we doing today?
You know, this was set for an SOC contested hearing. I've discussed this case with Mr. Rio. Mr. Rio has made an offer to settle. Mr. Gordon is willing to take that offer. However, we don't have a plea form. He hasn't signed any kind of an agreement. It wasn't until this morning that we came up with that. So what I'm hoping to do is possibly, if the court is willing to read the police report, you know, find him guilty, and then we can discuss what Mr. Rio's offer was, as Mr. Gordon is not contesting it, but was just to plead guilty.
All right, so for the record then, with regard to the stipulated order of continuance, Mr. Gordon, you are stipulating to the revocation in this case? You are agreeing?
I'm not sure what that means.
Are you agreeing to the revocation of the stipulated order of continuance?
I'm not sure what that means.
Basically, Scott, that indicating that you didn't pay the fines on time and then you picked up the new criminal cases.
Oh, okay, yes.
So you are agreeing that the court has a sufficient basis to revoke the agreement that you entered in this case?
Yes.
All right. And Mr. Kano, the agreement you reached does not have anything to do with an amendment of charges, just, all right. So I'll take a moment and review the police reports. And for the record, this is cause number 7Z09277474, in which case Mr. Gordon is charged with simple assault, domestic violence. All right, and I have reviewed the report of Officer Julie Lee, and based on that report, I do find that on about August 4th, 2017 in the city of Pasco, that Mr. Gordon, or excuse me, Scott Gordon, Donovan Flattery, without any lawful excuse, the individual pushed is his mother. So I do find that there is enough evidence to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of the charge of simple assault, domestic violence. I'll incorporate the affidavit of probable cause as well as the Officer Lee's report that I reviewed today. Mr. Kano, what was the agreement in this case, or the recommendation?
There was 364 and 364, 350 plus probation.
And probation? there was a no contact order that's been terminated in this case. Mr. Gordon, you do have a right to address the court before any sentence is imposed. Is there anything you would like to say?
No, sir.
And Mr. Gordon, are you able to make payments towards these fines and costs?
Yes, I am.
And what is your current address, Mr. Gordon?
9316 Shire Drive.
Is that in Pasco?
Yes.
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 All right, I'm going to follow the recommendation in this case, 364 days in jail with 364 days suspended. A fine in the amount of $350. A probation fee of $200. A $43 criminal conviction fee. A $100 public defender assessment, and a $100 domestic violence assessment. You will be on probation for 2 years. During that time, you're not to have any criminal violations or incidents. You're not to have any domestic violence related incidents. You are to have a risk assessment at probation within the next 30 days.
Okay. So what does that mean? Where do I show up?
I'm going to give you and we'll mail these items to you as well at that address. But there will be a report date on March 24th at 2 p.m. That'll be a telephonic meeting initially, and then probation will set up that risk assessment. You understand that?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Probation will have the authority to, depending on the results of the risk assessment, terminate probation prior to the 2 years if they believe it's appropriate.
Understood.
With regard to the fines and costs, set payments at $35 a month. Will you be able to begin those on April 12th?
Yes, that sounds good.
All right. Now, with regard to that telephonic appointment, we do treat those as if it is a personal appearance or required appearance. If you fail to make a phone call or appear on the 24th, a warrant could be issued for your arrest. Do you understand that, sir?
I understand.
All right, and we will mail a copy of the judgment and sentence that's entered today, as well as a copy of your appointment slip for probation to the address you provided as your current address today. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions, Mr. Gordon?
No, sir.
All right, that will conclude our hearing today, and you are excused.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Have a good day. Bye.
You as well. No. All right. Is Mr. Scott going to be here? Do you know, Mr. Bell? I haven't looked yet. I just don't see Mr. Scott here. So we do have that in cause number ending in 672. Well, if it's on and Mr. Sparks is represented, I expect Mr. Scott will be here at 10 because it's scheduled at 10 o'clock. All right, the other matters we have, it looks like have other attorneys. We'll admit Ms. Rodriguez and see if she's ready to go on any of her cases. Looks like Ms. Rodriguez is connecting or attempting to at least. Ms. Rodriguez, I see the notification that you are still attempting to connect to the audio. Are you with us yet? Ms. Rodriguez, you may have, if you can hear me, you may have to disconnect and reconnect. Have we heard from the interpreter yet?
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Ms. Rodriguez. We're here today on a couple of different hearings. I see that we need the interpreter on at least two of yours. How about Mr. Reyes?
He does not need an interpreter, Your Honor.
All right. Are we ready to go on that case?
I'm not sure if Mr. Rio is present there. I received a message that he was in Superior Court.
I do not have Mr. Rio yet. For the record, Mr. Bell is appearing in person on behalf of the city. Ms. Rodriguez is appearing remotely. And I'm not sure that, is Mr. Reyes in the courtroom? He is not. So I don't have Mr. Reyes here today. Do you have your client's permission to appear on his behalf today, Ms.?
I do, Your Honor.
All right.
I'm going to ask that this matter be reset. I've been trying to be in negotiations with Mr. Rio, but yesterday when I reached him, we were unable to speak. So then I tried again this morning. So we've had difficult time reaching each other, Your Honor. So I can't resolve this matter today.
All right. Do you have a suggestion as to what date may be appropriate?
I would say probably 2 or 3 weeks.
And I see a declaration or a motion was filed by Mr. Reyes to appear remotely. You want to reset this to a remote hearing again?
Yes, if we could, Your Honor.
All right. Let me look at the calendar.
Would that be on a Friday?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
The next available, we'll see, it could be March 26th, but let's take a look and see how that. We could reset this to the 26th if you think that is enough time. If you don't, we could go the following week to April 2nd.
The 26th will work, Your Honor.
All right. We'll reset to March 26th at 10 a.m. At your request. That will be without any notice from the court, Ms. Rodriguez.
Okay.
All right. And that concludes Mr. Reyes's hearing.
And Your Honor, do you not have an interpreter available?
We do not have the interpreter yet. No.
Okay, well, Mr. Villalobos actually finished high school, so his English is pretty good. I just did a plea for him in Superior Court in English, so I think that we can proceed on this matter. It's a probation violation. Well, actually, it's a SOC, so there's
All right.
a new violation.
All right. And is Mr. Garan Villalobos present in the courtroom?
He's on WebEx, Your Honor.
I don't see anybody else in the waiting room.
I've been in communication with him all this morning and he's been waiting. So I'm not sure if
I
he
wonder,
got kicked off.
well, we don't use WebEx, so if he's in
I'm sorry.
WebEx, he might be in Superior.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I misspoke. I'm just so used to saying WebEx. He is on the link that I sent him for this court.
All right.
And I am texting him.
Yeah,
Should
and
I?
we haven't seen anybody yet on his behalf or any unknown. The others in the waiting room are identified by name, so we know it's not him. My clerk indicates that he was connected earlier, but he's no longer here.
Could be what was happening to me, Your Honor. I kept getting kicked off. Oh, he says he's getting on.
All right. While we're waiting for him to connect, there is a Patrick Ingram in the waiting room. Mr. Bell, what are we doing on that one today? It looks like it was an SOC compliance. I don't see that. I'm going to admit Mr. Ingram. Good morning, Mr. Ingram. You are muted, so you'll need to unmute yourself in order to communicate. We are here today on a review of a stipulated order of continuance. It looks like costs have been paid. You're to have no criminal violations and not apply for or obtain a concealed pistol or light concealed weapons license.
It looks to me, Your Honor, like the review date was January 12th, and then I showed the fine date made on February 19th. But given this time, it appears she is in compliance now.
All right, Mr. Ingram, it appears that the only issue was the payment of the costs associated with this case based on the fact that you have now paid those costs. The city is agreeing to dismiss this case today. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, as far as the dismiss, what does that actually mean as far as like moving forward?
It means the case is over.
As right, does it still show up as far as like jobs go? You know, how does that work? I don't get it. As far
It
as
will show up as an arrest. It'll show that it was dismissed.
okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Ingram?
Nope.
All right. I've signed an order dismissing the charge. Mr. Ingram, I believe the last address we had for you was in Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a current address?
Yes.
On Royal Lake Drive?
Yes.
All right, we'll send a copy of this order dismissing this case to that address, okay?
Okay.
All right, that'll conclude your hearing today, then, Mr. Ingram. You're excused.
Thank you.
All right. And Ms. Rodriguez, I still do not see Mr. Villalobos in our waiting room.
Sorry, Judge, I was speaking while I was muted. So he indicates that he's on there, but the screenshot he shows me says he's still in the waiting room.
I don't have anybody else in the waiting room other than Mr. Lepe. Here he comes. All right. He just entered. We'll admit him now, Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Leo Villalobos. Are you able to hear me, sir? You need to unmute your microphone, please. Are you able to hear me, Mr. Villalobos?
Yes,
All
Yes, I
right. Ms. Rodriguez has indicated to me that you are prepared to proceed with a hearing today. Previously, we have used an interpreter for you. Are you able to proceed without the interpreter?
yes.
Can you tell me why you're here today?
I'm here for assault, disorder.
All right, a disorderly conduct charge.
Yes,
And do you understand what the stipulated order of continuance is?
yes.
Can you tell me what that was or is?
The order.
Yeah, the document that you entered on August 14th, 2018. Can you tell me what that was?
Yeah,
What was it? Or what is it?
it was a disorder conduct about it.
And what about it in 2018? Do you recall being in court in August of that year?
Yeah.
And
Yes, sir.
what happened at that hearing in 2018?
Oh, I was yeah, my ex-wife always accused me for domestic violence.
Yes, and then in 2018, how did you choose to resolve or go forward in this case?
Follow the order they gave me from the court.
And do you know what that order was?
Just be not get in trouble for anything.
Were there any other conditions?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Do you recall what those other conditions were?
Yeah, just to be not in trouble for.
And then
What
did
else?
something
Sorry,
happen after that, Mr. Villalobos, that caused you to come back to court in this case?
Yeah, my judge is online or to explain to you what was happening.
All right. Ms. Rodriguez, the interpreter has come into the courtroom now. I think we should go ahead and use our interpreter.
I agree, Your Honor.
Yeah. For the record, this is City of Pasco versus Sergio Garan Villalobos. She is connecting now.
While we're waiting, if Mr. Bell can look at the text I sent him before we start.
All right, and I have admitted our interpreter into the courtroom. You are muted right now, so you'll need to unmute yourself. Thank you.
I'm unmuted. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, I might have you step into the witness room just outside since we
I
have
will
you
do that.
remotely. All right, for the record today, we're here.
Okay.
Mr. Bell has appeared personally on behalf of the city. I and the clerks and court staff are in the courtroom. There are some audience members as well, and an officer. Appearing remotely is Ms. Rodriguez on behalf of Mr. Gunnar Villalobos and our court interpreter, as well as Mr. Gunnar Villalobos. We are here today on a review of a stipulated order of continuance.
Estamos aquí para una revisión de orden estipulada de aplazamiento. Estamos el juez y las secretarias judiciales en la sala y el fiscal también. El señor Guerrilla Villalobos está compareciendo por vía Zoom y también su abogada y el intérprete.
And Ms. Rodriguez, what are we doing today?
Señora Rodríguez, ¿qué estamos haciendo hoy?
Your Honor, I represented Mr. Sergio Garin Villalobos in Superior Court, where he was there for a felony hit and run. And we have since pled guilty to that charge. And so that leaves us no other option other than a revocation of the disorderly conduct charge here in municipal court.
Su señoría, yo estaba representando al señor Guerrilla Villalobos por un cargo de delito mayor de chocar y huir, y se declaró culpable a ese cargo, y eso no nos deja más que aceptar la revocación de este cargo de aceptar la revocación del aplazamiento de condena por el cargo de conducta desordenada o alterar el orden público.
So as I understand it, then Mr. Villalobos is agreeing to the revocation of the stipulated order of continuance.
Entonces, según tengo entendido, el señor Villalobos está aceptando la revocación de la orden estipulada de aplazamiento.
Those were the conditions that I understood that we had, Your Honor. No further criminal offenses.
Esas eran las condiciones que yo tenía entendido que teníamos, su señoría, no tener otros delitos criminales adicionales.
I do not have that in front of me, but I'm assuming it also said no criminal traffic.
No tengo nada frente a mí, pero yo asumo que también involucraba no tener cargos criminales de tráfico.
That is correct.
Eso es correcto.
Mr. Villalobos, do you agree with everything your attorney has said today on this docket?
Señor Villalobos, ¿usted está de acuerdo con todo lo que su abogada ha dicho hoy en esta audiencia?
Sí.
Yes.
Based on that, I will revoke the stipulated order of continuance.
Basándome en eso, voy a revocar la orden estipulada de aplazamiento.
And we will proceed to a bench trial on the police reports.
Y vamos a proceder con un juicio con juez solamente basándome en los reportes policíacos.
I have before me both the citation and the report issued by Officer Kevin Franz.
Tengo frente a mí tanto la boleta de citatorio y el reporte del oficial Kevin Franz.
And I'll take a moment and review those.
Y voy a tomar un momento para revisarlos.
All right, I have reviewed the police reports in cause number 8Z0524-431.
Ok, he revisado todos los reportes policíacos en el caso número AZ05244331.
I will incorporate both the affidavit of probable cause as well as the report written by Officer Franz.
Voy a incorporar tanto la declaración de causa probable como el reporte del oficial Franz.
Based upon the information contained within that report and affidavit of probable cause,
Basándome en la información que contiene ese reporte y la declaración de causa probable,
I do find that on or about May 28th, 2018, in the city of Pasco, Mr. Villalobos did commit the crime of disorderly conduct beyond a reasonable doubt.
yo voy a encontrar,
Go ahead, Betty, sorry.
Your Honor, could you please repeat the date?
May 28th, 2018.
Voy a encontrar que basándome en esos reportes voy a concluir que el señor Villalobos cometió el delito de conducta desordenada o alterar el orden público en la fecha del 28 de mayo del 2018.
Your Honor, may I address the court on that?
Su señoría, ¿puedo hablar con él, con su señoría acerca de eso?
Yes.
Sí.
The charge is disorderly conduct. I'm not sure if Pasco's code requires that to be in public. My understanding that this took place inside their household. But again, I don't have the original documents. That was Mr. Huey's case. So I'm not sure if there's something in the SOC that allows, well, I just don't know the contract as to how it's written, whether it allows the elements of the assault for to then be as a disorderly conduct.
Su señoría, si puedo decir algo, los elementos del delito son conducta desordenada, pero no sé si eso permite que sea que se incluya el concepto de público. No estoy familiarizada con la información del señor Huey y no sé si se deba de incluir público.
Mr. Bell, do you want to address that?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the police report. it appears that while some of it did occur inside, it also appears some of it may have occurred outside.
Señor Bell quiere decir algo. Bueno, parece. The interpreter was having a hard time hearing Mr. Bell, Your Honor.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'll speak up.
And it'd probably be better if you do sit down and speak into the microphone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Estoy batallando para oír al fiscal, entonces el fiscal se va a acercar un poco al micrófono.
It appears from the report that some of the incident may have occurred outside, not just inside.
Parece que por el reporte parece que parte del incidente puede haber ocurrido fuera, no nada más dentro.
Anything additional, Ms. Rodriguez?
¿Algo
No, Your Honor.
adicional, señora Rodríguez? No, su señoría.
And specifically, I would say that the Pasco Municipal Code defines the crime of disorderly conduct as follows.
Y específicamente voy a decir que el Código Municipal de Pasco define el cargo de conducta desordenada o alterar el orden público de la siguiente manera.
That with the intent to cause or recklessly create a risk of public inconvenience, annoyance, or alarm,
Que con el intento de causar imprudentemente molestias, inconveniencias o alarma.
subsection A says makes noise which unreasonably disturbs another.
La subsección A dice que hacer ruido de manera que moleste a otros.
Or subsection C says a person engages in fighting or in violent, tumultuous, or threatening behavior.
O en la subsección C, que una persona participa en conducta violenta o de pelea o conducta violenta.
And the facts that contained in the officer's report that support the court's finding
Y los factores que contiene el reporte del policía apoyan el fallo del juzgado.
indicate that at approximately 8:50 in the evening,
Indican que aproximadamente a las 8:50 de la noche,
that the defendant arrived at his wife's house and was striking the door repeatedly and very loudly.
que el acusado llegó a la casa de su esposa y repetidamente estaba golpeando la puerta de manera muy ruidosa.
And I would find that those facts are sufficient to find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of the disorderly conduct.
Y voy a concluir que esos actos, esas acciones, por eso lo encuentro que es culpable más allá de una duda razonable de conducta desordenada o alterar el orden público.
All right, anything that you would like to say regarding sentencing in this case, Mr. Bell?
¿Hay algo que quiera decir, señor Bell, acerca de la sentencia en este caso?
Are you looking for a recommendation or just?
What's the city's recommendation?
¿Cuál es la recomendación de la ciudad, del fiscal de la ciudad?
Your Honor, given that this was amended to a non-FTB, the city's just going to be recommending 20 days in jail with 19 suspended, a $350 fine.
Su señoría, estoy recomendando 20 días en la cárcel con 19 días suspendidos y $350 de multa.
Ms. Rodriguez, anything you'd like to say?
Señora Rodríguez, ¿hay algo que usted quiera decir?
Yes, Your Honor. I would
Sí,
ask
señor.
Your Honor to not impose any jail time. This was my client's first criminal offense. And I'd like the court to know a little bit about what happened in Superior Court and how that charge came about as well.
Su señoría, yo solicitaría que no se le dé tiempo de cárcel. Mi cliente, yo quisiera que ustedes supieran cómo se desarrolló el caso del Tribunal Superior y dar un poco de información de eso.
Your Honor, in Superior Court, he was charged with the felony hit and run. It's important to know that the victim in that case was highly intoxicated after his family tried to keep him in the bedroom. He snuck out of a window and was running into the streets late at night.
Yo quisiera decirles que la persona, en el caso de chocar y huir, la víctima de ese choque era una persona que estaba bastante embriagado. Él, su familia trató de detenerlo y él se escapó por una ventana y se fue corriendo en las calles en la noche.
I'm not sure based on the reports as to whether he was suicidal or not, because he was jumping in front of cars and waving his arms about, and that there was actual video evidence of that.
No estoy segura, según los reportes, si él tenía intenciones suicidas, pero él se le estaba atravesando a los carros y estaba moviendo las manos, atravesándose.
Had this happened maybe on the city street, Mr. Garin Villalobos would have recognized that it was a person that he struck.
Si esto hubiera ocurrido en las calles de la ciudad, entonces quizás el señor Garin Villalobos hubiera reconocido que lo que había golpeado había sido una persona.
However, this was in the late, I want to say maybe early morning hours, around 1 or 2 a.m. on the freeway. And
Sin embargo,
go ahead.
Sin embargo, esto ocurrió muy temprano en la mañana, en la madrugada, aproximadamente como a la 1 o 2 de la mañana, y esto ocurrió en la autopista.
It was very dark, and because he was on the freeway, he did not feel safe to pull over, thinking that he had struck possibly a dog or some sort of animal.
Estaba muy oscuro en la autopista y él, como estaba en la autopista, no consideró que era muy seguro pararse porque él pensó que él había golpeado a algún perro o a un animal grande.
Unfortunately, the following day, he did see that it was on the news.
Desafortunadamente, el siguiente día él sí vio eso en las noticias.
And recognized that it was an actual person that he had struck.
Y él reconoció que en realidad era una persona lo que él había golpeado.
Mr. Garin Villalobos' first thoughts were to contact law enforcement.
Lo primero que se le ocurrió al señor Garin Villalobos era comunicarse con los agentes de seguridad o agentes del orden público.
However, his wife, the victim in the case here at Pasco Municipal Court, convinced him not to do that.
Sin embargo, su esposa, la víctima en el caso del tribunal de la ciudad de Pasco, lo convenció de que no lo hiciera.
And because of that, Mr. Villalobos was convicted. The prosecutor, go ahead.
Y por esa razón el señor Villalobos fue procesado.
The prosecution in that case recognized that there were mitigating circumstances in this particular case, and indicated that they would proceed without the normal jail time that they would give for these type of cases.
La fiscalía en ese caso reconoció que había circunstancias mitigantes en este caso en particular y dijeron que iban a proceder sin darle, considerando que había circunstancias mitigatorias, circunstancias mitigantes.
This has actually been very difficult for Mr. Garin Villalobos, both emotionally, mentally, recognizing his actions and what occurred, the circumstances of what occurred.
Esto realmente ha sido bastante difícil para el señor Garin Villalobos porque reconoce tanto mentalmente como físicamente porque él reconoce sus acciones y las consecuencias.
And he's been wanting to resolve this matter so that he can obtain mental health care.
Y él ha estado trabajando para resolver este caso porque él quiere obtener atención de salud mental.
So I'm asking, Your Honor, that you take that into consideration and also the detriment that these charges actually will have on his DACA. It really just kind of set the ball rolling for Mr. Garin Villalobos, and there's a lot of actions that are still required to take after this.
Yo le pido a su señoría que por favor considere la situación de detrimento que está teniendo el señor Garin Villalobos y que sus acciones van a afectar su DACA y también que va a haber consecuencias, que es una bola que va rodando y esto está dando lugar a otras consecuencias.
In the alternative, Your Honor, if Your Honor is not willing to waive that day to allow him to do work crew instead of jail.
Por otro lado, si su señoría no está dispuesto a quitarle ese día de cárcel que le permita hacer trabajo en cuadrilla de trabajo.
Right, thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Mr. Villalobos, is there anything you would like to say to the court?
Gracias, señora Rodríguez. Señor Villalobos, ¿hay algo que usted quisiera decirle al tribunal, al juzgado?
Que mi esposa en ese momento estaba ahí conmigo en la corte y todo lo que pues, le estaba diciendo que era mentira y pues el policía nunca le hicieron caso a ella sobre el reporte. Lo único que tengo que decir.
Well, that my wife was there and then she was in court and the police never listened to her. So that is all I want to say to the court.
What's your current address, Mr. Villalobos?
¿Cuál es su dirección actual, señor Villalobos?
Es 27 West 14 Avenida, que en Kennewick, Washington, 99337.
It's 27 West 14th Avenue, Kennewick, Washington, 99337.
All right. After listening to the recommendation and the argument of counsel and post-sentence as follows, 90 days in jail with 90 days suspended. Mr. Villalobos, are you able to make payments towards fines and costs?
Ok, después de oír, estoy procediendo a la sentencia, van a ser 90 días con 90 días suspendidos. Señor Villalobos, ¿puede usted hacer pagos por las multas y los costos?
Sí.
Yes.
A $500 fine, a $100 probation fee,
Una multa de $500, un costo de libertad probatoria de $100.
a $43 criminal conviction fee,
Un costo de convicción criminal de $43.
while on probation, you're not to have any criminal violations or domestic violence related incidents.
Mientras usted esté en libertad probatoria, usted no puede tener otros cargos criminales ni incidentes de violencia doméstica.
You are to have a risk assessment within the next 30 days at the probation department.
Se le debe de hacer una evaluación de riesgo dentro de los próximos 30 días con el Departamento de Libertad Probatoria.
Your appointment with probation is March 30th at 3 p.m. That is a telephonic appointment.
Su cita con el Departamento de Libertad Probatoria va a ser el 30 de marzo a las 3 de la tarde y es una cita telefónica.
We will email or send to Ms. Rodriguez a copy of the judgment and sentence entered today. Payments are set at $30 a month beginning on April 12th.
Se le va a enviar un correo electrónico o se le van a enviar copias a la señora Rodríguez del fallo y sentencia y los pagos van a ser a $30 al mes a partir de abril, beginning April 12 de abril.
Ms. Rodriguez, any further comments?
Señora Rodríguez, ¿algún otro comentario adicional?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, su señoría, gracias.
Mr. Villalobos, any additional comments or questions?
Señor Villalobos, ¿algún otro comentario adicional o preguntas? ¿Tiene?
El probation tengo que comunicarme con un oficial, nomás la única pregunta.
So with probation, do I have to contact a probation officer? That would be my only question.
Yes, you do. And your first contact is on March 30th at 3 p.m. telephonically.
Sí, y su primera comunicación debe de ser el 30 de marzo a las 3 de la tarde por teléfono, telefónicamente.
We'll forward the documents to Ms. Rodriguez, and if you have questions, she can explain those to you.
Nosotros le vamos a enviar los documentos a la señora Rodríguez y si usted tiene alguna pregunta, ella le puede explicar las cosas a usted.
Sí, gracias.
Yes, thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions, that'll conclude this hearing. And Mr. Villalobos, you are excused.
Ok, si no hay más preguntas, esto concluye nuestra audiencia y se le permite desconectarse, señor Villalobos.
Ok, gracias.
Ok, thank you.
Your Honor, I understand that Mr. Rio is on his way down.
Yes, he has arrived.
Your Honor, this is the interpreter. Are there any other matters via Zoom that need an interpreter?
Yes, we have Rafael Lepe requires your assistance.
Thank you.
He is in the waiting room, so I'll admit him at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I see that Mr. Lepe is connecting here.
Veo que el señor Lepe se está conectando.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Lepe. Are you able to hear me? And you will need to unmute yourself so that you can respond.
Ok, buenos días, señor Lepe. ¿Me puede escuchar? Y necesita quitarse el modo mudo al poner el micrófono para que podamos escucharlo a usted.
Otra vez.
Buenos días, ¿sí me
Good
escucha?
morning. Can you hear me?
I'm able to hear you. Can you hear us as well?
Sí, lo podemos escuchar. ¿Nos puede usted escuchar también?
Sí, sí.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. For the record, Mr. Rio and Mr. Bell are here on behalf of the city. Ms. Rodriguez is appearing remotely. Mr. Lepe has appeared remotely as well. There are observers and the court staff in the courtroom. What are we doing today?
Bien.
Para que conste en actas, el señor Río y el señor Bell están por parte de la fiscalía aquí, la señora Rodríguez apareciendo por vía remota y el señor Rafael Lepe también.
Va a quedar más oscuro, ¿no?
Es-
Ms. Rodriguez?
I didn't hear what my client said.
no escuché lo que dijo el cliente.
Perdón.
Excuse me? Pardon me?
Ms. Rodriguez, I'd like to know how we're proceeding today.
Señora Rodríguez, quiero saber cómo vamos a proceder hoy.
You know, I provided discovery to Mr. Rio. He's not had an opportunity to review that. So I'm not sure if we should set for trial today or give Mr. Rio the opportunity to review that. I'll leave it up to him.
Su señoría, yo le proveí revelación de pruebas al señor Río, pero él no ha tenido oportunidad o tiempo de revisarlas, entonces no sé si deberíamos de fijar la fecha del juicio hoy o darle oportunidad. Yo le dejo la decisión a él.
Have received that discovery, I just haven't had a chance to go over it with Ms. Rodriguez. So one more reset would be fine with the city. If the court's inclined, this, as cases go, this isn't that old of a case.
All right.
The interpreter is having difficulty hearing what Mr. Rio says, Your Honor.
All right, I'll repeat that. Ms. Rio
Thank you.
indicated that he did receive the discovery. He has not had a chance to review it with Ms. Rodriguez, and he would suggest resetting this. This case is not that old.
El señor Río ha recibido esas pruebas, no ha tenido oportunidad o tiempo de revisarlas o para revisarlas con la señora Rodríguez y si quiere reprogramar el caso, aplazarlo porque el caso no es muy antiguo.
Can we go to the same date as we did on Mr. Reyes? I believe it was the 26th.
I would, but I think there's already 12 or 13 cases set that day, given the length of time that remote hearings take. I'd rather go to the 2nd if that is available, counsel.
That works for me
poner-
as well.
Podríamos ponerlo para el 26 junto con el otro caso. Bueno, como ya yo lo haría, pero como hay muchos casos, lo vamos a poner para el 2 de mayo. Sí, estoy de acuerdo, dice su abogada.
Do you have an objection to that, Ms. Rodriguez?
No, Your Honor.
All right.
No tengo objeción, su señoría.
So we will reset this hearing to April 2nd by the agreement with the parties
Vamos
That'll
a,
without notice from the court.
vamos a reprogramar este caso, lo vamos a poner para el 2 de abril por medio de un acuerdo de las partes y no se van a enviar notificaciones o avisos.
Mr. Lepe, stay in touch with your attorney.
Señor Lepe, manténgase con comunicación con su abogada.
If you have any questions, you discuss those with her, okay?
Si tiene alguna pregunta, hable con ella, por favor. ¿Está bien?
Sí, muchísimas gracias.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. You
Okay,
are
gracias.
excused, Mr. Lepe.
Ya se puede ir, señor Lepe.
Gracias, muchísimas gracias.
Okay, thank you very much.
Your Honor, before I leave, there's one question that I have on the Villalobos. What was the fine on that, the total fine?
I believe that was $500 with some costs, and we'll send you a copy later today of the judgment and sentence.
Great. Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Have a good day.
All right, I see we have both Mr. Scott and Mr. Sparks remotely.
Your Honor, this is the interpreter. May I disconnect?
You may disconnect. We do need you for some in custodies.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Scott. I'll ask you to unmute yourself. I'm admitting Mr. Sparks as well at this time.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Mr. Sparks is connecting now. I see he's still attempting to connect. There we go. Mr. Sparks, are you able to hear me, sir?
I'm wondering if he's muted, Your Honor.
It doesn't indicate that. Mr. Sparks, are you with us? It looks like Mr. Sparks is having some difficulty. We do have, do you have Mr. Reyes's file? Did we take that one? We already do that. Yes, we did, because see, he's still connected in the waiting room. All right, Mr. Sparks, I show that your microphone is muted. Can you unmute your microphone?
Yes,
All right, good morning, Mr. Sparks. Are you able to hear me?
I am.
All right, for the record, we are here today in Pasco Municipal Court. Mr. Bell has appeared personally in the courtroom. Mr. Scott and Mr. Sparks are appearing remotely. Mr. Scott, what are we doing today?
Your Honor, we'd like to enter a change of plea. I submitted plea paperwork signed by all parties, by me on everyone's behalf with their permission to Ms. Porras. And hopefully the court has that document before it.
I have a copy of the front page of the statement of defendant on plea of guilty that does indicate some signatures and initials. In the future, Mr. Scott, we will need a copy of the reverse page that contains those rights and responsibilities or potential consequences, okay?
Yes, Your Honor, he's been provided the back page, and I can actually get it to the court right now if the court so desires.
Thank you. Mr. Sparks, you are here today on cause number 9Z1072672, charged with trespass in the second degree. Mr. Scott has indicated that you will be entering a change of plea to that charge today. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I have been handed or been provided a copy of a statement of defendant on plea of guilty with some initials on here indicating that Mr. Scott placed these initials here on your behalf. Did you authorize him to do that?
Yes, sir.
And there is a signature here indicating that Mr. Scott had your permission to affix this signature here. Is that correct? You gave him permission to do that?
Yes, sir.
You understand a crime of criminal trespass in the second degree is a misdemeanor. It is punishable by up to 90 days in jail and a $1,000 fine. There is no mandatory minimum sentence for such a conviction. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
There is a recommendation that is made here in paragraph 6. You understand I'm not required to follow that recommendation. If you plead guilty today, you do face up to 90 days in jail.
Yes, sir.
Did you authorize Mr. Scott to place these initials here because you understand the rights you have and you understand the potential consequences for a plea of guilty today, including the potential immigration consequences?
Yes, sir.
I can go over those rights that you waive by pleading guilty today if you wish me to do so.
No, I understand.
And did you place or authorize Mr. Scott to place this signature here to indicate that you've had enough time to talk to him about this case and that you're entering this plea today voluntarily?
Yes, sir.
Other than this recommendation, has anybody made any promises or threats to get you to plead guilty?
No.
To the charge of unlawful trespass in the second degree, a crime which was committed on or about December 4th, 2019 in the city of Pasco. How do you plead, sir? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Your statement is that on or about that date in Pasco, Washington, I remained on my mother's property unlawfully after she asked you to leave. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, sir.
I'll accept your plea of guilty. Find there's a factual basis for the plea contained in the statement. I am signing the statement. For the record, Mr. Sparks, did you actually read this statement of defendant on plea of guilty, or did Mr. Scott read it to you?
Actually, I read it. When
Thank
it was sent to me, yeah, I read it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Based upon that plea, I will dismiss cause number 9Z1109223. I'm signing an order to that effect. And Mr. Sparks, you do have a right to address the court before any sentence is imposed. Is there anything you would like to say?
Honestly, Your Honor, I'm just glad that we're getting a resolve to this and we're able to all move forward. I made a lot of changes in my life that I'm really proud of, and I'm just glad that this kind of puts this to the end. So that's it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sparks. Are you working, sir?
Yes, sir, I am.
Are you able to make payments towards any fines and costs in this case?
I can. To be honest, I'm working. However, I'm still impacted by the epidemic right now. So any fines that are set, I would ask that they are manageable, because I being moved into a new spot and taking on a new careers, there's a lot going on. So, but I am willing to make payments. I don't want them to be extravagant.
All right, I will take that into consideration, Mr. Sparks. Anything in addition, Mr. Scott?
No, not really, Your Honor. Just that I am impressed by the changes that he's made in his life. He's working full time. He's a manager at a Red Lobster, I believe, and that's a lot better than a lot of my other clients can say, unfortunately. So and he's also completed some treatment and has a certificate of completion. I think that it's no coincidence that he's been able to make these important changes in his life and that he's also completed treatment. So, and finally, I guess I would note that he's completely repaired any damage that has been caused to his relationship with his mother. So everything is looking up. I think 2020 has been a really good year for him in contrast to a lot of people's experience with 2020. So I guess when I said I had nothing to say, Your Honor, I was mistaken. So there's a lot of good to say.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Sparks, having pled guilty and listening to both your remarks and Mr. Scott, I'm going to impose the following sentence: 21 days in jail with no days suspended, credit for 21 days already served, a fine in the amount of $250, a $43 criminal conviction fee, and a $150 court-appointed attorney's fees. We'll apply the bail that was posted in this case, the amount of $350. That leaves, it looks like roughly $93. I'll set payments at $25 a month and
That's
start
awesome.
those on April 12th.
Cool beans. Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. That's great.
I'll forward this copy of the judgment sentence and the paperwork that was signed and entered today to Mr. Scott. He can forward copies to you, Mr. Sparks.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, that will conclude this hearing today.
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck, Mr. Sparks.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. You're excused.
How do I excuse myself? Okay, there we go.
All right. And do we have, looks like Ms. Pridemore on for arraignment, and then Jose Garcia Arias is set for a hearing today. We have the interpreter. It looks like she just stepped out of the courtroom. I don't see any other individual logged in for a arraignment. So I'm going to call, let's see, Ms. Pridemore. This matter is scheduled to today's date for an arraignment. The defendant has failed to appear on 3 separate occasions. She did attempt to connect on February 12th. She lost connection and then did not reattempt. We reset to today's date to attempt the remote arraignment again. That matter was set for 10 o'clock. It is now 10:35. The defendant has failed to appear again. Mr. Bell, any comments regarding this?
Yeah, Your Honor, it's not really sure where to go from this point. It looks like this is the fourth time we've tried to get Ms. Pridemore here for this arraignment. I appreciate that it may be difficult to get down here from Yakima and that she's at least attempted, but at some point, I think we just need to say enough's enough and maybe the issue of bench warrant to try and get her in here so we can finally see her. It's just been. For the court, I guess, whether you want to give her one more chance.
Defendants failed to appear, issue a bench warrant, $500 cash or bond. This was the fourth time that we've held that arraignment hearing and she has not appeared.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, I think that concludes our remote hearings. So with that, we'll end the live stream and terminate the remote